Hello and welcome to the I Am Woman project, where every week we have deep, thought-provoking and interesting conversations with thought leaders, change instigators, rule breakers and creative minds who think differently, sparking creativity and inspiration. Our special guests on our show cover a variety of topics just for you, and they share their personal stories to inspire, motivate and empower you, our listener. The I Am Woman podcast is produced for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at www.catherineplano.com. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favourite RSS feed or iTunes. All links are in the show notes. Now let's get into the show. I have a super awesome announcement. What would you say if I could give you a chance to be mentored by the world's leading international thought leaders, authors, speakers, and change makers? It's time for you to create space for miracles with the launch of the Radical Shift Summit for anyone wanting to experience change in their lives. Commencing on the 9th of October, over an 8-day period, these global gurus will help you understand how to achieve lasting positive transformation and make a quantum leap in life and in business. The summit offers teachings and recent discoveries from the world of neuroscience, cognitive psychology, medicine, philosophy, and much more. So don't miss out. This summit is an information-packed, intensive course that will help you to understand the complex connection between your mindset and behavior. Make no mistake, this is not just a talk fest. Workshops and presentations are designed with practical everyday life tips that you can easily apply at home, work, and in life. And all you have to do is go to www.radicalshiftssummit.com. So it's radicalshiftssummit.com and grab your free pass now. Today we have the amazing Kerry for you. After spending nearly 5 years in Victoria's maximum security prison for women, Kerry was released with her Master of Arts and was successful in completing her Doctorate in 2014, which is an extensive research and multi-publication of the study of women in prison as a community, from the perspective of a participant and observer. Whilst incarcerated, she was the lead peer educator, which involved liaising, negotiating and advocating for and on behalf of every woman prisoner for the term of her sentence. She was sole representative for the community of women in appearing with them in governor courts, magistrates and county court pleas, parole board submissions and DHS negotiations. She was granted her own office in prison where she represented over 4,000 in hearings. For the last 6 months of her sentence, Kerry worked by day at a law firm and returning to the prison at night. Kerry continues in this role since being released and advocates for post-release women in the community. Kerry was the inspiration behind Wentworth, and in January 2012, Kerry was appointed Story and Prison Authenticity Consultant for Fremantle Media to consult on the newly announced remake on Foxtel of the hugely successful cult television series Prisoner Wentworth that premiered in May 2013. Foxtel recently purchased her ABC Australian Story episode and edit throughout 47 countries in Asia as part of the Best of Australian Stories in 2010. Let's tune into Kerry Tucker's inspirational story. Enjoy. Today we have an extremely special guest for you, Kerry Tucker. Welcome to I Am Woman Project.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me, Catherine.
You are most welcome. I invited Kerry Tucker to the show because she has such an inspirational story that I'd love for all of our listeners to tap into, and I find Kerry a very inspirational woman. So for our listeners, Kerry, would you like to tell us a little bit about your story?
Well, I guess my story focuses around the fact that I was in prison, a maximum security prison for women for 5 years, and prior to that, I was just a normal suburban mum of two very little girls at the time, my daughters, and I found myself in a maximum security prison. I was convicted of corporate fraud, and when I went into prison, it was my forensic psychiatrist diagnosed me with having a dissociative identity disorder, which was previously called multiple personality disorder. But I was about the only person who had no idea that I was quite ill. I guess that's the point of it, dissociative identity disorder. But everyone else used to think that, which Kerry is it today and whatnot. They'd all talk amongst themselves and whatnot. So I was quite surprised to be told that. It wasn't taken into consideration at all in the court anyway. But I think it actually helped me a lot when I was in prison, because I was able to segment, trauma and fear. I was able to stand up to bullies because I had that rescuer sort of distortion going. So, and interestingly enough, when I went to trial 2 years after I was in prison, just before I went to trial, they came out and tested me, and on the scale I was about a 6 or a 7 out of 10. 7 is sort of nudging where you give people names and things like the personalities, names and clothes and whatnot. And then when I was leaving prison, I didn't register on the scale at all. So it's interesting that, in a place like a maximum security prison, I was able to heal psychologically. And that was through being able to help other women as well.
So from your journey, from when you're talking about multi-personalities, talk us through that. Like, how did you heal yourself through that process, and what was the process for our listeners? Because I'm sure there's, I think that we all have levels of multi-selves, and it's about identifying what those selves are and then working with them. So talk us through how you did that part.
And I agree with you there. I don't think it, in some circumstances it can be not so great, but when you're put into another traumatic circumstance, like a maximum security prison, it can actually work for you because your brain does do it for you. It's a self-defense mechanism. I was actually in the remand unit, which is the most volatile place of the prison, and I was helping women. My job was to help women that arrived to prison and help them settle in, get them phone calls to their kids, make sure that they were feeling okay. We'd try and negotiate with them, and I'd set them up with different support groups that that I knew they had connections with or whatnot. But it was also understanding their trauma. It's really important that people understand that women in prison, nearly all of them were victims of crime before they ever became perpetrators of crime. So these women, mostly 74% or whatnot, are drug addicts, and that's come from childhood sexual abuse, rape, so on and so forth, all of their addictions. So, understanding those. The other important thing is that about 90% of women that arrive in prison have come from immediately prior to their crime or during their crime from a domestic violence situation. So that's how much it impacts on these women, and being able to sit down and listen to their stories, what they've done, their histories, it made me realise that, I wasn't as tough as I thought I was. I was a little bit broken. And being able to sit and empathise with them to such an extent that I did, because I really liked these women, I think it gave me a little bit back to myself, and it made me start thinking, and I critically thought all the way through my sentence, and maybe it just sort of adjusted, the way I was thinking in my mind. I don't know. But that's something that, that definitely helped me.
So what I'm hearing is while you were in prison, you were helping other women, and as you were doing that, it brought to light some of the stuff that you were going through. Because I know even with me, with coaching, a lot of the stuff that I'm dealing with quite often comes up in my coaching sessions when I'm with a coaching client. It's almost like that mirror is held in front of me, which then makes me reflect a lot about me later on. Is that very similar to what you went through?
Absolutely. I come from the right side of the tracks. I was a bit of a trophy wife in that sense. A very unhappy marriage, two beautiful children, but a lot of trauma. And I was always putting on appearances. That I was totally in control. It wasn't until I went to prison I realised just what a facade it was. How cracked the mirror was. In being able to understand other people. Empathy is a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I think I was, a little judgmental of things I didn't understand, I guess. So, being able to help other women and being in that situation of being able to just step up and go, well, actually, this is something I can do, is a very empowering thing. It restores a little bit of what you've lost, of your humanness, I guess.
And empathy is not that easy. When you're talking about empathy, there's actually being able to stand in somebody else's shoes and actually, see and hear from their perspective. And that's not always easy to do, is it?
No, and most people don't do it because it's uncomfortable. And two, they feel they don't have to do it because nothing's ever going to happen to them. And, you just never know. Every person in there comes from some wonderful families. They're all sisters and mothers and aunts and whatever else. So the part about being judgmental, I see these traumatized women and the children that are left with people on the outside, who are committing these heinous crimes on the outside. It's really hard to be judgmental unless you are an absolute pure soul.
So, Kerry, talk us through what exactly were you working through with these women when you were actually in prison for 5 years? What were you doing?
Well, I realised very quickly that I could become very handy in the sense that when I got there was about 38 out of 40 people going for their parole and not getting it. And my point of view was that, well, they're entitled to it, they've earned it, and it gets them back out into the community so they can start becoming a member again, and more importantly with their children. And what I found was that they just weren't articulate, and they were very angry. So basically I got my own little office, and I sat there and I represented each woman, and it went from about 2 out of 40 getting their parole to about 38 out of 40 getting their parole. And that was by just giving them a fair and accurate representation at their parole hearing via a legal letter that I would submit, rather than the girls having to state their own case, because they're angry, they're not articulate, and that doesn't come across really great for the parole board. Plus, they were being, denied parole because they hadn't done certain programs when certain programs weren't available. So I felt it was a very, very unfair, and I felt that it was stacked against them.
So, Kerry, I'm curious because I find that inspirational in itself that you actually did something while you were there. What was your driver? What drove you to do what you did?
I wanted more than anything to be able to come out. One of the reasons I when I went to prison, I didn't appeal it, and I stayed in a maximum security prison by choice the whole time. I wanted to do it hard, and I wanted it to be seen that I had done everything that was asked of me and required of me and requested of me, so that when I got back out, I wasn't answerable to anybody. I fulfilled exactly, and I contributed to the community while I was in prison. So that I could hold my head up, and when I got out. So it was very important to me. Then I realised that I needed to invest in the community around me, and I was never one that was going to sit there just sunbaking all day. I did have my days, but I was always going to be. I'm a fairly motivated sort of person, so I was always going to be their voice. I liked the women, and they trusted me. And so that was how important it was.
I just love that. And I think for me too, I have this in my mind, and you hear this quite often, that when people get out of jail, I don't even know what the percentage is, but there's a quite high percentage they return back to jail, because there's that, they can be so authentic, be themselves, they don't have to pretend to be anything else, that they feel this sense of comfort in jail rather than going out and then pretending to be something that they're not. Talk us through that.
One of the major things is that, and I've always said, the recidivism rate is around about 48% at the moment, which so roughly means that within 2 years of a woman or someone leaving prison, they will return. And everyone sort of focuses on that. I tend to like to look, and of course we need to do a lot more, there's no doubt about that, but I also look at the 50% that don't return, that are success stories in themselves, because one of the hardest things about prison is leaving it. And I left there on a Friday. I had a university job to go to on a Monday. I had loving family that picked me up, and by Sunday night I wanted to go back. And one of the reasons is that when you isolate somebody for so long and in such an insular way, you do become disconnected to everything around you when you get out, and it's very frightening. You also know that people don't want you. That's a horrible, horrible feeling. Yeah. Shame takes you to a place, that is very hard for you to remove yourself from, unless, you work on it while you're in prison and when you've just been released. And also, the community, has to realise that, that everyone gets out. To not invest in prisons is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, because, in my mind, we've got captive audiences. Let's make it a prison where you just completely do programs to heal these women and men, so that when they leave, they are the very best person they can be when they leave. Why wouldn't you want to do that? And so, it is really, really, really difficult for people that leave prison, because most of the time they haven't been adequately prepared for it.
So it sounds like the actual focus should be internal, where you support these individuals internally before they get out, rather than the other way around. Because it sounds like externally there's not enough support, is there? No,
externally it'll never work. Internally it does. And this is my point. Your sentence is when prison is your sentence. Being denied programs and whatever else within prison isn't part of the sentence. Your exclusion from the community is. So while you're excluded from the community, you should be prepared from day one to re-enter the community, because you go through such an amazing thing. You've got to remember, most people that are in prison, and particularly women, are non-violent. So this isn't a huge thing for the community. That they're more of a nuisance to the community than they are a threat to the community. So, in my mind, they're also mothers. It becomes a cycle. If when their children are sort of left out in the cold as well, there's a lot of work that could be done, but unfortunately, the community tend to think that putting money into prisons is a waste of time, and there's nothing more ridiculous than that idea, because people are going to come out worse than when they went in, and that's just not of any benefit to the person, to the individual, or to the family, or to the community.
So true. So, Kerry, who's going to carry your legacy? Like, you did such a great job in there, because you were not only helping women, but you wrote a book as well, which I'd love for you to talk us through that. But who's going to carry your legacy?
I don't know. There is a program. It's called, we were peer educators, and generally when someone leaves, somebody else goes through a 6 to 12 week training course, and they're selected to become part of the peer program again. So there's always somebody to, to step into that role, or my role. So I don't know who's actually the peer workers now, so I can't really speak to that. But when I was there, Brendan Money was the general manager, and he used to walk through the compound of a Friday afternoon, and he knew every woman by name. He'd ask about their children by name. He invested in the women there. He looked after us. We actually all felt a little bit safe, in that sense. And I said to him, I was having trouble, getting my kids in, for visits, because my ex-husband and I hadn't had, prison sort of experience. And I said to him, I need to write a book, and I need, the prison to pay for it and publish it. And he said, okay, so let's do it. So, and it's a colouring book. It's designed so that if you were in prison, your husband would sit down with your kids before the visit, and it goes through step by step of what they can expect in a really friendly manner, because it is the visit centre is a very friendly place. And they colour it in as they go, so you can talk around what's happening, so that when they get there, there's nothing frightening. And it's still in use today. I'm really, really, really proud of it. I donated everything as far as that goes to the women's prison, but it's used a lot in the men's prisons as well, and in a lot of legal firms in Melbourne and legal aid, I think.
Oh, I love that. And it's true, it can be quite scary. If you've never experienced it, it would be a scary thing. So I love that it kind of takes away the fear from it.
Yes, yeah, and I totally understood that. You can't, just because I'm on the inside going, well, after a week or so, well, this isn't so bad, and I've seen the inside of the visit centre, trying to convince somebody who has nothing to do with coming to a prison, let alone bringing two small children, is not an easy feat, understandably. But, it assisted a lot of women to see, their children. And my point has always been, we're not women sitting in prison going, well, hey guys, they're our children, so you bring them in. It's not about that at all. It's about our children's right to see their mother, so they don't feel abandoned, so they don't feel that, mummy doesn't love them or she's run off with somebody. They need to be seen. I've got two beautiful young women now, they're so well adjusted, they're socially aware, they follow me in the different commitments that I have for the community. They're well-rounded young ladies, so coming to the prison was a very friendly thing for them, in that the officers went out of their way to be, to let them know that they knew mum and they liked mum and she was a nice person and that she was never in any fear, and it's everyone working together. So it's just really, really important, that children are included in everything.
Absolutely. So, Kerry, during this whole journey, what has been some of your greatest lessons that you have learnt along the way?
One of the greatest lessons, I guess, has been about empathy, about understanding yourself and being true to yourself, not settling for anything, about being brave enough to make a decision to leave, brave enough to make a decision to do something or not, brave enough to stand up for what you think is right, looking after yourself, basically, and, never being judgmental.
And that's easier said than done, isn't it? Especially for women, when you're talking about, being brave. Sometimes, some of these women that you have spoken to me about, it's not like it's these situations they put up with until one day it was just like, I've had enough. And how they respond to I've had enough might not be, I guess, the who's to say it's wrong or right, but it is what it is. So it's much easier said than done.
Oh, it absolutely is, and this is, and when, if we talk about domestic violence, this is one of the truly bad sides of it. In the sense is, that sometimes if someone gets too broken, they haven't got that ability to make these decisions, and people that are in these sort of environments in fearful environments can make really bad decisions very, very easily. Whether that is deciding they're just in the split of the moment going to get rid of them, or making bad decisions to get involved in fraud or whatever else. It changes who you are at the very core of your being. It sets your mind on different ways of making decisions. It changes your decision-making ability, So in that sense, we need to start educating at middle school level about, investing in yourself to make sure that you have this core knowledge and an awareness that this is wrong. Because if you haven't got that, it's very easy to go, well, this is my fault, I can fix this, I can change this, this is what that, it goes to the very core of who you are. And if you've just got that little light that says, hang on, this is wrong, it could help, in a lot of different ways. We've lost a lot of women that left prison and went straight out and was murdered by their partners. So, we need those programs in prison as well.
That's really sad. And Kerry, I just think what a role model for your daughters as well, because it sounds like you've done a lot of the deep work as well, which is why you do what you do today. And I guess for me too, with the benefits of hindsight, would you have done anything different?
Oh, yes. Yes, but the outcomes, and yes, I would have, and the outcomes would have been, again, entirely different, in that sense. The thing, I don't know about it being any different. I guess the only thing I regret about the prison time was my time away from my daughters. Other than that, there's nothing I regret about that, because it opened me up to a completely a situation where I can be trusted enough to be their voice and their advocate. And I've promised to them 10 years ago that that's what I do, and I still do. Doing things differently in hindsight would change the path prior to me going to prison. That's sort of debatable. I'd like to be just on this earth with my daughters and the prison experience and move forward.
Yeah. And Pete, you quite often, we have this conversation. Everything happens for us, and you don't know. Like, it may sound really hard what you went through, but who's to say that if you didn't go through that, it could have been worse, and you could have gone down a different road completely and not be where you are today.
I totally agree. I was at a point where I was so frustrated that anything could have happened, and also, I always knew that there was something that I was supposed to do. I just had this feeling that I don't know. And I feel quite fulfilled now that now I know what that feeling was in that sense. So I say, I guess it does happen for a reason. It also happens because of who you are, because I was fearful enough to make stupid decisions, because I was a little bit mentally ill. There's so many things that align to make this decision that, it's almost like it was a meteor that was going to hit Earth. It was just going to happen,
Mm. So, Kerry, what do you do with yourself now? You've got the book now. You do a lot of public speaking and schools and so forth. What else do you do?
Well, I'm still in the education. I'm not lecturing at the moment. I've sort of converted over to a role of executive manager for the academic side of the deans at a college. So I'm still involved in the education system, because I absolutely love that. My memoir is ramping up and about to be released early next year. So there's the final editing of that and the photos, and it's being published by Penguin Random House. So there's meetings in Sydney and in Melbourne at the Melbourne office. It's an amazing procedure of how to get a book out. I'm quite amazed, but I'm in great hands. They're fantastic people. So that's really quite exciting as well. I've just got back from the Ethics Centre in Sydney, where I was part of the IQ2, the Intelligence Squared debate at the Sydney Town Hall, about prisons and whatnot. So, I try and do as much as I can in and around the prison sector as far as that goes. But the book is the next really big thing.
And is the book written by you, or is that somebody else writing the book on your behalf?
I've written half of it, and they've now got a wonderful ghostwriter in to assist me to finish it, because I was just treading water towards the end, and we have a deadline. But he's fantastic. He knows my voice and how this is a book about bringing women to life. It has a lot of humour, a lot of respect. There's a certain tone that I want the book to be written in. I don't say anything bad about anybody. I don't divulge anyone's secrets. When we're in there, it's about a story, about a journey, and about who I encountered along the way. And it opens up. I was very involved with Wentworth, because they actually used my journals for the first series, and I sort of was a co-author or contributor for the first series. Anyway, we weren't involved after that in creating all the characters and whatever else. So it's sort of there's a mishmash of Wentworth and Wentworth without the hysterics, basically.
Yeah, and who were you in that character? Because that was Prisoner, right?
B.
Yeah. I was going to say B. I used to love Prisoner. I used to watch it. And when you said that, straight away I got a picture of B.
Well, that's Wentworth. Wentworth is a re-imaging of Prisoner. So Wentworth is the new, done in this day and age. So, but, as I say, it's only the first one. But we're looking at it being sort of my memoir being sold off in the same way, because it's very ripe for a series, quite different to Wentworth, but still, because there's so many different characters.
There is. And there was Liz. I can't remember all of them, but it's going back a long time ago now. But oof.
Yes. So I was modelled on the new Wentworth person, not the old one.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, so it's still, you know, people like those sort of stories. You know, most people will never know what it's like, thankfully. So, and it's also, you know, I see it as a historical document basically for my daughters. So, you know, I want them to come away, read the last page and go, wow, Mum, and feel really nice and warm and cuddly. Not, you know, I don't want them to read the last page and go, oh God. You know, so you know, this is a tribute to them, as much as it is to everybody else who's sort of, you know, was part of the journey that has made my experience one that wasn't traumatic at all.
Yeah. So, Kerry, what advice would you give your younger self?
To find the lost girl, and just, you know, I think when I was younger, I just bounced off everywhere trying to find a place to fit in, and I just couldn't. So I had nothing substantial in that sense. I just sort of wandered around, and then latched on to basically the first thing where I felt I might fit. So I think the biggest advice is knowing who you are and having a direction, knowing what you want. It's so important. A lot of people say, you know, it's really hard for our young people to make decisions about what they want to do when they're so young, but it's actually not. It's about knowing what's in you and going with that, because people that wander around bouncing off different places looking for a place to fit in leaves itself open for so many problems, so many miscommunications, so many misuses. It's really hard. So you know, that's the one thing I truly look back on and can see it in my mind's eye. So.
And it's a common, you know, it's a common thing when you think about it. I mean, all of us have been lost at some stage in our life. And I think even more so now with our, you know, I guess with social media, there's all these, I guess, expectations of what our teenagers should be like, even at school, you know, like how they're graded and where they should be at by now. And I think there's so much pressure that it's okay to be a little bit lost, but I think it's important to connect with that. But, you know, we don't have those conversations, and I don't think we have enough of those conversations. It's where to from here, you know, because I think people even go through school, go through university and come out at the other end and still don't know what they want to do.
Well, that's right. It's the connections of, you know, I look at some and see, you know, with my family, I come from a large family, so, you know, people were busy getting married and getting, you know, having their lives. There was no ill intent there. It just happens, and people wander off, so to speak, and no one really notices because, you know, they have lives and whatever else. And it does happen these days too. You know, I see people that have friends that go back to grade 2 and 3. You know, I don't have any connections at all from when I went to school at all. So, you know, it's that sort of where you're feeling like you're just walking through the community. You're just walking through the world, but you're not actually touching and grabbing onto anybody in that sense. So that's really, really difficult because it's very hard to then, you know, connect on any deeper level with people. Because and I guess that's, you know, gave me another ability while I was in prison as well. So, you know, but that is so important. It's so important because I think it is a platform where out of everything bad can grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, you know, the other thing too, when you were saying that, you know, you don't have you know, the friends from school. And so I don't either. I don't have those connections. And when I think about it, I still hear people, you know, have got friends from school and they grew up together. And I think, well, I haven't got that, but, and I've never had that, and that's okay. You know, my friends I can probably count on one hand, but I think that's okay. I think as the younger generation, there's also pressure on how many friends that you should have, like especially with Facebook. It's like, well, I've got 4,964 friends. How many do you have? And it's like, are they friends or are they just acquaintances? I mean, you know, and I always say that to my son, you know, as long as you've got, you know, there's friends for life, friends for a reason, and friends for a season, and friends for life, you can count on one hand. But
I also think, you know, the connection, you've got to have one or the other. If if you lose touch with all your friends and whatever else, then you need to have a family base.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got a family base, you need to have a friend base.
Yep.
You've got to have something to feel grounded and rooted to, Otherwise, you go looking. You actually don't just sit back and enjoy life and enjoy your connections and your richness of tapestry of people and whatever else. You actually go looking for something.
Yeah.
Because you haven't got it. It's not, you need to have it, so you go looking for it. And you're not doing it with a clear mind, with an innocence of thought or anything like that. And that's where you encounter, bad moves, bad decisions.
It's you hear so often, especially I think more so. I don't know. Boys seem to more than girls. They tend to do things because they think they're indispensable and they'll live forever and nothing can happen to me, and they do crazy stuff. And you get that. I say that to my son. You get one chance in this life, and don't do what other people do just because you want to have fun or there's that peer group pressure. If it doesn't feel right, follow that gut feeling. Don't do it.
Yes. And, and the other thing too is that, you do have, that misguided nobility of thinking, well, look, I'll work this out. I'll sort it out. I'll just do it now and I'll sort it out and I'll, there's that impulsiveness, where you just want to grab onto something straight away, to be a part of, to be included in or whatnot, and it's something that my girls are. I look at my girls and they've got a lot of friends, they've got a loved family, they've got good bases if ever they start to get a little bit insecure, and that's really, really important, because if you've got no one to turn to, you've got your own mind to make decisions, and everyone needs to be guided on decisions, till you die, basically. It's very easy to make, and desperate people make desperate decisions very easily and very quickly.
Yeah, true. And it's all about being accepted or being connection, because that's the number one human need, isn't it? Connection.
Yes, it is, yeah. And when you haven't got it, you absolutely know it. It's the one feeling that you can't escape, that you can't, it's in everything that you look at and do. You look at people walking down the street differently. It's a very powerful thing.
Yeah, sorry. So, Kerry, what we do as we wrap up the show, we always love to ask our woman of inspiration to describe one word that best describes your personal brand. So what would be that one word for you?
Your personal brand. Resilience.
Resilience, yeah. Yeah. I was going to say that, or knowing what you for our listeners, they can't see you, but I've seen you a couple of times and she's always looking glamorous. So I was thinking something more like glamour as well. And when you're talking about personal brand, it's true. Like it's when you were saying, you make that extra effort because of, I guess, perception too, right? Yeah.
If, with everybody that I deal with, I'm very open and honest. I embrace what I do, and so everyone knows, my background and whatever else. But on another level, it's about connection. I've worked very, very hard to rebuild my integrity. So that involves, how I personally project myself as well, so that people will engage with me, with who I am. Because once they get to know who I am, the rest will come along with it, and they'll become curious about what happened and so on and so forth, rather than judging me immediately and, not ever having those connections. So, I made an effort. I made an effort while I was in prison. I put makeup on every single day.
Yeah. And that's what I love about you, Kerry. You're authentic. You say it as it is. It's not like, and I know that there's other, stories and other individuals that I know that are, have either come out of jail and hide it and then try to go for a job thinking they'll never get found out. Just I think if you stand in your truth, yes. And I think you always get given a second chance.
I tend to agree. By and large, people want to give people second chances. They just want to know that they're going to earn it and that they're going to respect it. So in giving there is an expectation, and and that's fair enough too. It's about just accepting that people have faults and there's so many different reasons that people commit crime, so many different reasons, and you can't judge it immediately. But by and large, people do want to give, people second chances. It's sort of the Australian way, really. It's part of human nature.
Yeah, and there's always a reason why people do what they do. It's not like, I don't think people go out of their way to create misery for others. I think they're just either hurt in such a deep way and just don't know how to work with it.
Yes, it's like once and particularly with crimes, with the girls, with drug addicts and whatever else, it's trying to untangle a ball of wool once they're so heavily invested in that, and it's no one I don't think makes a conscious decision. Well, most don't make a conscious decision to go and commit crime. It's a slippery slope, It's one decision after the next.
Yeah. So, Kerry, the other thing that we do as we wrap up the show, we always ask our woman of inspiration to leave us with 3 shiny golden nuggets or bits of advice that you would like to give our listeners. What would be those 3 shiny golden nuggets that you would like to leave for our listeners today?
3 nuggets as in advice?
Yeah.
Yeah. Seek help. The first bit of advice I would do is don't think you can do it yourself. It doesn't matter what situation you're in, but certainly if you're in a domestic violence situation, seek help. Try confide in somebody, because nothing is going to change until you do. The next one will be invest in yourself. Invest in those around you. Know that you deserve better, and don't settle for second best. And the third would be consider everybody from a humanitarian point of view before you pass judgment on them.
I love that. So it's equality. We're all that common ground, regardless of what our past is.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all exactly the same. Some have. You'd be surprised how many people when I'm out in the community or at workplaces and whatnot, and they'll sit down and they'll go, "Wow, I've just heard about your story. Da 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 da. Let me tell you about me." And the amount. But no one knows about them, But we all have stories and we all have pasts,
Yeah, and I think that sometimes when you have the courage and you share your story, it actually gives permission for others to share their story too.
Absolutely, because the end result is that we're all mothers, we're all sisters, we are all women who deserve the equality of everybody else.
So true. So, Kerry, for our listeners, I know you're doing a gig in October in Melbourne. So talk us through that. And then where can our listeners find you? What would be the best place?
It's Melbourne Inspiration Day, and it's on September the 10th. It's at Doncaster, so melbourneinspirationday.com.au. And we're all over Facebook and whatnot. So it's a day about just speakers that are ordinary people, not celebrities or anything like that. It's 4 different stories. It's music as well and dance. So everyone needs to have that sort of creative role, and it's about expressing yourself through creativity, through your stories, through your dance, and through music. And people can get inspired. These some wonderful. I'm speaking at it as well. But there's some wonderful, wonderful stories of people that have really, really overcome, and they're the true inspiration. So, and of course, the founders are just inspirational in themselves. So it's going to be a fantastic day.
Can't wait. Obviously, I highly recommend for our listeners to go and check it out. And what about for our listeners if they want to follow you so they can keep an eye on your new book? Can they find you on what social media platform is the best place to?
I'm on Twitter as Kerry Tucker, and I'm on Facebook as Kerry Tucker, but I've also got a public page on Facebook called Revlon and Razorwire, as seen on Australian Story. So that's a public page, and that sort of carries what I'm doing or what I'm connecting with in the community and a lot of the book stuff. And Instagram is Kerry Tucker again. I keep it simple.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kerry, for coming on the show, sharing your amazing story. I love it, and looking forward to meeting you face to face.
Oh, my pleasure, and looking forward to meeting you too. So thank you so much, Catherine.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of another episode. I hope you enjoyed the show, as it is my mission to reach out and inspire as many individuals like you. And one of the best ways to help us achieve this goal is by giving us a good review on iTunes. It's easy and it only takes about 10 seconds. If you have any questions or special guests that you would like to hear from, please send us an email to support@catherineplano.com.au and we will get right back to you. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter or Facebook @Catherine Plano. That's it for now. Thanks for listening. Until next week, please take care.